This episode of the Bottle Rocket podcast is brought to you by GamerClips.tv. Play, share and watch video game frags and clips with hundreds more added every day. Hit the link in the comments section to check them out.
Hi guys, welcome to this podcast with me, Chris.
With me, Ben.
With me, Jake.
Me, the month.
Now, the last 2 weeks running, we've mentioned hoverboards, and a video came out today of the one and only Tony Hawk's riding Hendo's hoverboard up and down a half pipe.
He was kick flipping the crap out of it.
It's worth a mention. It's
Who's Tony Hawk's again, Mance?
Funny. He's a dino.
He's Tony Hawk. There's only one of them.
You weren't quite sure of his credentials, were you, Mance?
Is he actually won anything? I don't know. Has he won anything? Is he like some fire champion? Or
Jake, just to fill you in on the discussion pre-recording of the podcast, we were talking about this hoverboard and Tony Hawk's, and me and Chris were like, "Yeah, man, cool." And Mance's like, "Oh, what's Tony Hawk's ever done apart from make games?" Oh God!
I love it.
Yes.
We were like, so after his sort of tech developing days at Neversoft, he actually got on a skateboard.
I've only ever seen him in Jackass, and he was rubbish because you kind of get clobbered with like big things. Yeah.
Generally, when Tony Hawk
pain,
people don't try and knock him off it. It's the usual thing. And it's Tony Hawk. There's only one of him. The kids are going to think we're so uncool if we keep calling him Tony Hawk's. We only think he's Tony Hawk's because all of his games are owned by him with an apostrophe.
Yeah. But yeah, he was going up and down this metal half pipe on Hendo's hoverboard, which is powered by sort of maglev magnetic fields and just looks really awesome.
And it was kickstarted.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just ridiculous.
It has begun.
I just think because of the science behind it, he wasn't able to pop off any kick flips or any insert skateboarding term here.
Yes, and because it costs like $250,000, and they probably didn't want him to.
Yeah. Take it easy, Tony.
Yeah, just gently.
The fact that we're at this stage, though, is encouraging.
World first sue lawsuit by Hendo.
Oh God.
Sorry,
Tony Hawk could probably afford it. I'm guessing.
Well.
Yeah, he is pretty rich, I would say. How
Saying that.
How many Tony Hawk's games was it? Like, it must have been at least 10 overall over the...
Oh, easily. I remember reading, I think after the third one, that he'd signed a deal for something like 15 more games.
Yeah.
With like an annual update would take him to about the age of 64. Something crazy.
Nice.
He's not that old. I don't think he's that old, but he's reasonably old from a skateboarding term. In skateboarding terms, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure like 25's old in skateboarding terms.
So
yeah, exactly.
You put it when you're an athlete or a sports personality. Old is like 35. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that footballer's 34. He should retire.
Yeah, that's exactly. Get off.
It's like every time I'm watching a race in MotoGP, and you've got Valentino Rossi, whose nickname is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And he's like 36 years old, and I'm thinking, damn, he's going to get off that bike and pick up a fucking Zimmer frame, because that's how they drill those kind of things into you with these sports people. It's like, what, you 30, you old. You over the hill, bro.
Yeah, that makes me old very soon.
Yeah.
I thought you were 19.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, Chris has been 19 for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Apparently this board can only hover over aluminium and other non-ferromagnetic conductors. For the science people.
Yeah, it sort of limits it a little bit, you're not
Slightly,
you're not
yes.
chasing Biff down in to get the sports almanac back with that, are you?
Exactly, unless we coat all our streets in aluminium, which I think we should.
Yes.
If only to have hoverboards.
I suppose what the question has got to be, how did we envision hoverboards were going to be, though? Like, obviously, this is the first real theoretical, practical version of hoverboards. I think I always had in my mind that they were going to have like little jet thrusters on, not like not like magnetic thrusters, like little jet thrusters or something.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
No, I know it does, but
Yeah.
Yeah, they come with
Remember
the
that
label
scene
saying,
in-
"Don't put face near thrusters."
Yeah. Remember that scene in Iron Man where he tries on the rocket boots for the first time? Kind of like that, but every time.
But
I think.
all of the time.
well, if a fictional billionaire can do it, then we can do it. God damn it!
Exactly.
But I suppose the interesting thing is, what can that technology be used to do? I mean, obviously you've got like a maglev train in Japan that's really amazing and like super stable and what's it. But in that sort of small compact version, what can that technology be utilized for?
Floating cars.
Yes,
Yes, on aluminium streets.
exactly. Well, which we can ride our hoverboards down.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I would love that. And I think, because it upsets me a little bit seeing all the kids riding scooters these days, I think.
I've got it. Life-size Scalextric, where you stand on the board and you like thrust yourself around the track. Yes,
I like that.
we've cracked it.
I think the only way it can work is if the oil companies are the ones running these development projects, though. Because the only reason we haven't got hydrogen-powered fuels with the only emission being water is that oil companies basically control the government with taxes. So it's unless we petition Shell and BP and say, listen, guys, we need this technology now.
It's like,
And
would
the
you
shit
mind?
gonna
Would you
happen.
mind going out of business?
Yeah,
I think the tire companies would have something to say about it first. I think
Maybe.
we all switch to hoverboards. I'm never
Well,
going to buy a new set of tires ever again.
they could come with deployable tires that
Just
you
in
could
case.
use for other purposes.
What's the point of making it a hoverboard then?
It's a hoverboard with
Off-roading.
wheels.
Where there's no magnetic element, derp.
Derp. Right.
I think-
Well, anyway, let's move on from hoverboards, and
Yes, let's
We've
put
only
it to
covered
bed
that now in
after 3 podcasts.
Yeah, we've only covered it in 3 podcasts, so let's get it in next week, just for good
well,
measure.
we'll keep you updated on the
Yes.
the hoverboard news. But,
On the bright side, when we don't show up for a podcast, Chris can cut together a hoverboard montage now.
So Warlords of Draenor.
Lag Lords of No More. Or no server of Lag
Is
Lords.
that what it's been officially been retitled?
Lag Lords of No More.
For you Warcraft fans, Warcraft
So
7, you are not
How many people play Warcraft these days?
a lot.
So
And you
it's
Come
somewhere
up with a
between
better name for it.
7.5 to 8 million monthly subscribers.
I think people should
in
really
together.
think about that name and whether they want perhaps to gather the community together and come up with a better one. But they probably can't because they can't all get online at the moment.
Yeah, so it's been. Now I'm gonna start by saying that I've had a very rosy experience with the expansion. I've been one of the lucky few that was blessed with not a great deal of lag and
12 days off work. And that.
Sort of 48 hours after launch, I was quite happily questing away, no queues, no lag, no nothing, on quite a high population server. So I've got a very rosy outlook on it. There are people with different opinions than me, slightly more angry opinions.
Yes.
I watched a video today of a guy that dropped more F-bombs in the first minute of his sort of video cast than I've probably ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I can understand.
It's fine.
I can understand the guy's frustration. I mean, I am not a WoW player, but I am a firm believer that Activision Blizzard, the richest, biggest games company today, at this moment in time, I would say, probably more so than EA at least, should have probably put a bit more effort into the countermeasures regarding such high play numbers. I think they've been reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah,
And
Blizzard.
when you're
Buck up.
talking, when you're talking like what, £35-40 for the expansion plus the £10 a month, that's a hell of a lot of money that people are shelling out, and they couldn't access the game for like almost 5 days. I mean,
Yeah.
Now I'll
I agree.
just for Blizzard's corner, I will say that today they came out and said that all players will be getting five free days worth of game time.
Whoop. Mega.
but we did say that
because I've only had 2 days where I experienced full game time, so that works for me. But you know, that's a step towards an apology. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be the Blizzard sort of flagship, but I do believe they need a voice.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they're very good at suing people, so it's fine. So-
the thing is, like, I mean, last week we were talking, because this is pre-Draenor, we were talking saying how good Blizzard were and how they do everything right and they're such a good developer, and then Warlords of Draenor comes out and it's like, unaccessible, cannot play, we're accused.
Absolutely not.
This is unacceptable!
Lance, why don't you weigh in on this, since you're probably the biggest WoW fan here? What are your opinions on it?
I wonder if it wasn't in a queue of about 3,000 right now. So, yeah.
Now, so sort of what went wrong, I think we need to sort of talk about first. And I mean, I'm not a very technically minded person in this respect. I don't really know anything about the ins and outs of how to make this sort of thing work. But I believe it was down to the way players accessed the new content and the path, the travel routes they took through the game caused the bandwidth to sort of fill up and sort of
Blizzard's
lag
fans.
to occur, and it's just sort of snowballed
Hmm.
in on itself and sort of crippled itself under its own weight.
So it was all bottlenecked at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, bottlenecking was a huge issue, and if I'm wrong, if there was some other big reason, I mean, a lot of people have been pointing at DDoS, which only affected the North American servers. You know, if anybody's got a really good explanation, then please enlighten me. But to my
Blizzard,
knowledge,
you really want to know that?
to my knowledge, it's the way people travel through the game, and too many people were trying to access the content from one point that it completely backed the data centers up,
Yeah.
which caused lag that just snowballed.
Yeah, living in London, I can understand what happens when too many people try to access a system at the same place at the same time every day. It does make things very, very, very difficult to move.
But then you've got to be asking yourself, like, why would Blizzard allow that? Why, you know?
Exactly.
Why was that not? Like, I was thinking about it today, and it was like I came up with a solution that could help in an afternoon of thinking. So why can't Blizzard, their team of developers, come up with it in the sort of 8 months where they've had these sort of pre-order figures, and they've had a good idea of how to avoid it.
That'd be too easy.
But you know,
Yeah.
I think, as I say, they've been reactive. They've probably been quite happy to rest on their laurels and their fat wad of stack in the bank, and think, like, we think we can handle this. We've got systems in place.
Every other game launch.
Let's see how it plays out. And
Every other
obviously
expansion
they've
was fine though.
failed.
Like, Mop was completely fine. And
Well,
that was the first ever time they did rolling restart on a server with Mr. Pandera, where the
yeah, I
server
was gonna-
turned itself off. Like it
I was
just.
going to say, yeah, you mentioned that where it sort of live updates in front of your eyes.
Yeah. Whereas all the
You
other games were all restarts.
You would think that this game would have had that down to a T. And
Yeah, it worked. It worked in Mr. Pandaria. It really did. I mean, I was there for the sort of minute it went live, and it all worked. You would take it to the next question area through a nice little cutscene, and it just sort of played out in front of you, and it was great.
Beautiful.
The same approach was taken in this one, and
However, 5,000 people were trying to click a tiny portal at the same time.
I don't know if it was, the sheer numbers that just caused it to back up, or what, I don't know. But I mean, from my point of view, everything they've done reactively has been really good, and it's made the game really enjoyable. It went live on Thursday. By Saturday morning, I was enjoying perfect, flawless gaming.
With that 5-hour queue time.
Well, no, because I was on.
I think I really think, Chris, that you have been one of the lucky ones, because
Yeah, so do I.
every person who I've spoke to in real life, I don't really go on the forums, so I don't know what's going on. But everybody who I know who has been obviously anticipating this expansion has been hit pretty bad with queues, lag, inaccessibility, up until obviously these fixes have come out.
Noobs.
And I just,
Did they?
I find it disappointing more so than anything else that a company as big, resourceful, with such a far and wide reach can be so almost lazy with such a big release. You've got 7.5, 8 million subs, plus those people are going to come back to play this expansion for 40, 50, 100 hours before they drop the subs again, which might be a few months. You should be prepared for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I
agree with your point. Like, people are spending money on this thing, and they should expect to be able to play the game they bought on the day that they bought it. And it's so damaging. Like, I mean, EA have had a series of disasters with their servers.
Yeah.
And they regularly get voted the worst company in the world as a result of it. Has this happened with other Warcraft updates? Like, as in this level of server loading, this level of lag?
I wouldn't say this level.
Mm.
You're always going to get queues for high population servers at peak times.
Sure.
In these launch times, that's
How the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
But as far as the sort of game breaking lag, it's a first. I mean, I've been playing the game for 6 years, and it's the first time game breaking lag has affected me.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
So bad.
At the same time, they have implemented a lot of new systems which, when they work, make the game really interesting and unique, like the phasing system, where sort of your environment changes as you progress through it, and different things that you do have an effect on the environment, and it changes in front of your eyes. And obviously that's different for everybody playing, so the phasing is layered up. And I don't know if that caused any problems.
Yeah. So they were doing things that they'd never done before, essentially, in this expansion, as well as it was a massive graphical update. And
the only issue I had in
crazy
MOP
things
was Chrome zoning they brought in, where all the low populated servers all got merged into one kind of mega server, so you had like opportunities to play with friends and experience people, and not like have like one person on that server at any one time. And that kind of broke the MOP launch, because everyone was trying to get to one NPC to pick up the quest. It was like, I don't know, 10,000 people at the same spot.
Yeah, but
that was the only bottleneck in MOP. But in the new one, I can think of at least 4 or 5 places where there was bottlenecking, and that was in the first 10 minutes of the game.
What didn't help was certain players would get on their biggest mounts
And sit there on a massive mammoth. Yeah.
and stand on the quest givers, so they were inaccessible to any other people.
Trolls.
Just sit there laughing.
Trolls.
That didn't help things. But I mean,
So you got somebody that's queued for 5 hours to then not be able to access a quest because some dickhead is sat on the quest.
Yeah, on his massive elephant.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's not the only game to struggle. I mean, the Master Chief Collection had a bit of a dodgy start with their matchmaking service.
Yeah, a few
Really
hiccups.
broke.
It just didn't work. Is what I heard, right? As in you just couldn't find. It's like nobody else is playing Halo today, anywhere.
This is after your 15 gigabytes day one patch. So,
No game.
Devastating.
When I was getting my car done, the guy that was behind the desk was talking to a Sky rep about he just got an Xbox One, and it had taken him 2.5 days on his current connection to download all the day one stuff that he needed.
oh shit!
Nice.
Oh,
And the good thing is Microsoft still haven't introduced any means of doing anything else on the console while you download updates. So like you download your 15 gigs update for Halo, you can't do anything at all. So
Nice.
I like this loading bar.
Was the 15 gig update for Halo because they couldn't fit it all on a disc? I'm sure I read that somewhere.
They I think, what is it? 50 gigabytes is the data capacity of a dual layer Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And they basically sort of omitted the multiplayer portions of the game or games. So they put all the campaign on the disc so you could get going straight away, and then you had to download the multiplayer portions. I said exactly the same thing, and I will argue the toss again about the whole money thing. Yeah, how much does a disc cost?
I know.
Like what, 2p or something to these guys?
It's been a while since I've played Halo, but surely when you sit down to play Halo, you either go, I think I want to play the storyline of Halo, or I think I want to play the multiplayer of Halo. Like, I think rarely would one kind of switch between the two, surely. It's like, maybe? I don't know. Maybe playing habits have changed or whatever, but it's... And God, how pissed off would you be if you had spent 2.5 days downloading a 15 gigabyte patch for it to then not work?
In fairness, this guy did have he only had a 1 meg connection.
Okay.
You know,
Still.
Nice.
It's not abnormal.
That's only about 100% less than I've got currently. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
it's
taken you 1.5 days, Ben.
It probably would have. I've been downloading the Battlefield 4 Final Stand DLC today. That was 6.5 gigs, and it's still going now. I set that up at probably about 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like a Warcraft server, that is.
But I think that's always been the way of things in terms of like how the internet works. I remember when I used to have Napster, and obviously only with albums that I already owned was downloading music off the internet, and it would take like a day. Never downloaded a song. Never ever downloaded a song from an album that I didn't already own.
Yes, well,
of course. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. My computer just didn't have a CD drive. That's why I used it. But yeah, so I kind of expect that with the internet, is you just kind of set something downloading and go and do something else for a bit. But even so, like, I think asking people to download many, many gigabytes on day one just to play the game they bought, it seems like a bit of a joke.
Yeah, it's a big stretch.
Yeah, and that amount of the speed of internet that Microsoft needs to make that kind of thing viable just isn't like prevalent enough. Like, unless you live in the middle of a big city, or in places like New York, etc., where they have rolled out fiber. Just no, like, don't make people download 15 gigabytes of stuff, especially if you can't do anything else on your Xbox while it's doing it.
Yeah,
so if it takes 2.5 days, then that's probably about the same time as it took me to get into a decent place on Warcraft. So that makes them on par with Blizzard. No.
Yeah, that is about an equal amount of fail.
Yeah,
well,
I mean these complaints were leveled when they released it anyway. Like the whole when they were trying to make it so that you had to be constantly logged in to to their online service, otherwise they would sort of basically brick your console.
Yeah.
There isn't the global internet coverage yet to do that.
No. I think the less said about that, the better, because Microsoft pretty much nearly nailed themselves to the wall with that when they announced Xbox One. And there's still time for them to change their policies, but that's for another day.
Mhm.
So, I mean, let's talk about a good launch. Destiny?
Yeah,
The
That
best
was a
launch,
great
that
launch.
was
possibly.
a pretty solid launch.
Yeah, I think there was some slight niggles with PSN and Microsoft servers, and I think the Destiny servers might have gone offline as well at some point. But for the most part, flawless.
Yeah.
I didn't experience any issues, and I was playing the game on day one, and I was downloading the update and playing straight away. So
Mm.
that's that goes to show that a company like Blizzard Activision, are capable of putting together a decent online launch for millions of players simultaneously across 4 different platforms.
Mm.
I'm just wondering if the way that they put that together has any sort of effect on it, because essentially in Destiny you go into a sort of 20-person instance whenever you log in, and then you're transported to a different one if you party up or whatever. And I'm wondering if that sort of architecture helped maintain the stability of it.
You can't tell me that Blizzard didn't think they could do that idea with
I think
how long it's been running.
to some extent you're right, because I mean I don't play WoW, but I imagine it's just one huge world where you perhaps load into certain areas. But with Destiny, if you go to the tower, which is the social hub, you're almost guaranteed to be with almost the maximum number of players every time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say go to patrol the Earth or patrol the Moon, you could be on there with as few as 2 other people who are just randoms. So it's far less likely that there are actually going to be a high number of traffic and a high number of players in any one instance, if you want to call it an instance.
Yeah, I think I think that's the way. I don't know how these things are made, but to me that seems like that's what gave it this the stability.
Yeah, and Destiny had it oversold its expectations as well, in that they sold many more copies than they were expecting to sell. So I don't think they even have the kind of excuse that you often see rolled out with these ones. It's just like we had an unexpected level of demand. Destiny coped with that.
I'm sure these developers have got a button that's on the desk. They smash the button and it says, "Yeah, we had an unexpected amount of players log in."
Yeah,
It's just an automatic response.
Yeah. Whoa, where do they all come from? All those pre-orders.
All those pre-order figures that we've had for 9 months.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to kind of talk about this with any authority without kind of really knowing the technical aspects of it. But it does seem weird that Destiny can be basically flawless in a launch where many more people were presumably playing it on day one than they expected. And Warlords of Draenor, made by a company that had been running the biggest MMORPG in the world for a decade, failed for the majority of people.
Now, the only sort of thing, maybe the skeleton of the thing is 10 years old.
Yeah.
And the skins that they've put on top of it are all new and look great, but perhaps the skeleton is 10 years old and it just can't sustain that many people. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you shed any light on the situation, then drop us a comment in the.
Chris Metzen, give us a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bless.
I got my number.
If you are technically minded and know how to build a massively multiplayer online RPG, call us, but call Blizzard first.
Obviously I'm talking about Destiny. They've just dropped a 2.4 gig patch with quite a lot of updates in. Ben.
Fire away.
Yeah, so there's been a few, obviously, issues that they're working towards resolving with regards to feedback from the community. They've taken a lot of flack for the update, to be honest with you, though, because a lot of faults can be found with the Vault of Glass raid, and so far they've not addressed any of them. But what they have done is they've added in some of the features that players have been asking for. So for the first time in this social MMO type game, there is a TeamSpeak option. that was never present before. You had to part up with somebody on your friends list to be able to communicate with them in the game. Or they did have a fire team option, but I think it was like a distance-based speak type majiggy. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm just like, blah.
Words. You lost me at
words.
You lost me at Voltron Raid, I think it was.
Yeah, they finally introduced this sort of team speak option. So they're actually integrating some social elements to the game, which is meant to be what it's heavily based on. They've done a few other little updates, like being able to preview a few things like armor shaders and player banners and stuff like that. But they've also somehow, now they claim this is not intentional, stealth nerfed the exotic weapons in the game. Now, they haven't done anything else to weapons, but somehow the exotics have gotten stealth nerfed. Now, I've got...
The official response on Twitter was, if you're experiencing exotic weapons performing in a different way, that was completely unintentional. It'll be fixed. It'll be fixed in next week's weekly update.
How can you unintentionally nerf an item?
Coincidentally, though, they've also just launched the Iron Banner, which is a public event based on the PvP side that takes into account level advantages and all armor stats and weapon stats. So the fact that they've unintentionally nerfed some of the best weapons in the game just before this highly competitive PvP tournament starts, I find a little bit unnerving for the future of the game if this is the way they're going to play it out. Hey guys, we'll update it the day before, but all your best weapons are now shit.
Why are they updating it the day before a big competition in any case? I mean, taking a Blizzard example, for example, when they run Hearthstone competitions, they sort of don't allow people to include decks with certain cards, and that's kind of circulated significantly in advance of the tournament. So that they wouldn't kind of change everything. They wouldn't kind of nerf a card the day before a tournament. They would kind of highlight to people that you can't use this card in your deck because a nerf is planned.
One of the big requests and talking points, and they keep talking about it in the weekly updates what they're giving to the community, is that exotic weapons are going to be made to feel more exotic. So they're going to effectively all be they're going to be given a buff so that they don't seem like slightly better legendary weapons, which is cool because they are rare. They're not easy to get a hold of. But then they do a stealth nerf or unintentional nerf, and then next week they're going to say, and here's the exotic buff. They're going to end up being exactly the same as they were before.
Yeah.
And what?
I love the idea of them making them more exotic. They're going to sort of strap a pineapple to them or something. It's just, it's so exotic now. We've increased the exotic stat by 200%.
It just there's other things that they've not mentioned in the patch notes though that have actually changed, like that the sound that certain weapons make, which technically doesn't affect statistics of the weapon. Some of them have changed, so auto rifles now sound different. They didn't mention any of that in the patch notes though. So they're saying that they've unintentionally nerfed exotic weapons, but then they've added things which they've yet to even tell us about or changed things. So
it's a bit worrying about what you're being told and what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've a group of people have data mined the actual the patch files, and it's brought up some interesting information about the DLC. Now, Bungie did say that this patch was so big because it was sort of putting more textures and things into pre-existing environments that will then be used for the next expansion, which is out in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. But the data miners have uncovered information regarding weapons and armor that are in the second DLC pack, which hasn't even got an announced release date yet. So, while I can understand that they are preparing for the future and adding things to the game. I think that they're sort of jumping the gun because they're taking a lot of flack for charging people £20 for an expansion expansion pack, sorry, and people think that that's just been cut out of the game. So it seems
there are
like
issues that the trailer did feature some bits that are in the DLC, and there's also in-game zones that you can access now that will be part of the DLC. So that sort of stirred up that bit of a hornet's nest there.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing to prove. I think it does happen, and it's really shit practice when companies basically just carve up a game and make big chunks.
Sell it back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Sell it back to you piece by piece. And Destiny wasn't cheap. And it was kind of a very early title in a brand new console cycle. It's going to have a premium price tag, and we know that it's made a ton of money already, didn't it? It met its budget, didn't it, on day one? Something like that.
120 million.
yeah. Well, I think it was. They've said it was a $500 million game.
Yeah.
They made $500 million, I believe, from sell-through into retailers, and I think that they're sort of the first weekend sold through something like $375 million worth of the stock for the game. So they sold a significant portion of what they'd sold into retailers. So that's a crazy amount. And if they have chopped the game up and are now selling those other pieces at £20 a pop, they've effectively doubled what they're making per copy, assuming most people buy the DLC.
Have you bought an expansion pack yet, Ben? They've already released one, right?
Well, you can buy the expansion pass, which gets you chapters 1 and 2 of DLC.
Yeah.
Or you can buy them individually when they come out. But because I bought the limited edition of the game, which I got for £75, which isn't too bad, I got the expansion pass and the game. So it works out as though I've just bought the game and the pass, plus whatever extras. But yeah, I've got the pass. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm loving the game. But I won't hesitate to criticise a company if I feel like I'm being ripped off or like I'm being misled, because that's one thing I hate so much.
Yeah.
It's like the whole Capcom thing again.
Yeah, exactly. When the stuff was just on the disc. You are downloading the stuff onto the disc through patches. So even if presumably you don't own it.
Well, that's almost like what's happening here, though. You know, the areas that are in the game but in the game and technically inaccessible without glitches, those areas are on the original copy of the game. So these areas do exist on the original plan for the game. They haven't sort of left a blacked out region and then they can actually put a section in there. It's there. They're just going to perhaps put some shiny textures in and populate it with enemies and chests. So it's part of the nature of developing the game. It's a relatively big world, but I don't know. It's deception.
And again, like I say, it is so hard to prove like whether this was the plan all along, that they were going to do this, or whether at some point during the development cycle they said no, don't release that bit. We'll keep that for DLC. It's just so hard, but I think it does sound a bit dubious with the kind of things that we've heard about the download and what's already in the game. Sad, really. I think, especially like you say, because they did so much to win such a big new player base, to then kind of be a bit of a dick to them all.
What you got was great, and I loved it, but I think it really lacks replayability, which is, that is the cornerstone for an MMO.
Yeah, you do reach a sort of saturation point with what you're experiencing quite quickly.
Yeah. At first, I worried that it was because I sort of jumped in with 2 feet and just played the hell out of it. You did smash it. Yeah, I thought I did it to myself, but on returning now, I can't. You know, there's nothing to go back to other than grinding out the same stuff that you've been doing before. I mean, the patch brought in, you can carry 10 of your little daily quest things now rather than 5. That just means 5 more daily things that I've done.
Yeah. We made your to-do list. We made
5
your
more
to-do list
opportunities
twice
to
as long.
grind.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, at one point they had some really impressive figures in terms of users. I mean, they were having 3 million users a day, most of which playing on the game for at least 3 hours, and that is massive figures. But with a lack of replayability and titles like GTA 5, the DLC for Battlefield, Assassin's Creed Unity,
Far Cry.
Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
With all that coming out, you've got to start asking the question: are they going to lose the biggest part of their player base?
Yeah, there is.
It's not like Warcraft where you're tied into it with a monthly subscription.
There is the issue of sustainability without that sort of permanent thing to anchor you onto the game. Like you say, Warcraft, you've got your £10 a month subscription fee. So whatever the case, you're tied to that game financially, so you feel obliged to play it. Whereas with Destiny, obviously they've targeted. I mean, they've made a great game gameplay-wise. I mean,
yeah, without a doubt,
is amazing, and as I say, they are sort of the first of their kind trying to go hardcore into these MMO elements, bringing them into a shooter and doing all the things they're doing. It's to some extent experimental, but as you say, these big hitting games, which have all launched today, at least in this country, or have, Call of Duty came out a week or two ago. These are all the big games that are now going to take their player numbers right down. So give it 2 weeks. It'd be interesting to see how the figures are then. But then I think, you've got to factor in the Destiny DLC too. So somebody might buy GTA today. Then in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, go back to it. But because they originally had like a 5-year plan or something like that, wasn't it? They were going to kind of 10-year. Sorry, that it was just going to keep on rolling.
But I mean, you've got to think, if somebody's just dropped all that money on GTA 5, then are they going to want to drop more? What is it? Maybe 20, 30 quid on an expansion pack.
Yeah, true.
There's almost a month between though. It depends on the habits of said gamer, I suppose.
Yeah. Buy it all.
But
man's buying it all.
It gets really expensive really quickly, though, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does. It's not a cheap hobby, and I suppose that's why I can sometimes seem like I've got to stick up my arse about things, because I haven't got a massive amount of disposable income, so I like to feel like.
Yeah, well, I only play titles apart from Warcraft.
I don't. So I play on.
Likes the premium.
I pay a lot of money, and you can have me titles.
It's like I'll be playing on Injustice very soon.
Yes.
Because that's
I paid 10. I paid 10 quid for that about 3 months ago. It's a good game.
So, it's fine. I bought a beta of Galactic Civilizations 3 recently. That's the most money I've spent on the game in the last 6 months, I think, at least. And that was about 20.
I do like the setup of how they've done that. Obviously, you've bought the beta to help them in sort of stress testing and just general game testing the game, and then I assume you then get the game.
Yep.
On that topic of buying betas, if you scroll through some of the stuff on Steam where they've done that, and you look at the negative comments, people are being slammed. People are buying beta games. The developers are not bothering to put the money in that the people have used to buy the game, and they're just releasing shoddy, half-hearted patches that don't do anything. People are uproar about certain games because people they want to see it developing, don't they? They want to see the game become a real really good game, but they just think
I think that's an entire topic for pretty much an entire podcast on its own.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I think we should talk about that in the near future.
We'll bring that because you can go into Kickstarters not using the money that they've generated to the game just to buy lemos instead. You know, that's a massive can of worms that I think we'll save for a different when we've got something when we run out of things to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
mean, to sort of draw to a close on this week's podcast, I just obviously Microsoft have come out and said that they're beginning to bridge the gap on the sales between Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
They wish.
That's nice of them to say that. It shows a level of optimism that one doesn't normally associate with Microsoft.
I mean, they have done a lot in the way of marketing and bundling their items to get some decent sales over the last few months. I think.
Yeah, they've done a lot in the way of price cuts as well. I think that slightly skews the view.
I'm not too sure about the figures in America, but I'm pretty sure over here in Europe, for the last 10 months solid consecutively, PlayStation 4 has outsold Xbox. Am I right?
I think in America, the last 2 months consecutively, Xbox One has sold more, but that's obviously they released Sunset Overdrive and they've had two price cuts, or they've rebundled the packages and jiggled the prices around. So obviously they've gained a bit of favour there. But I think sales figures and things, as far as they go, Microsoft, I think last week confirmed they'd shipped 10 million units, which means shipped to retailers. Whereas Sony, I think, had come out and said that they've sold through to consumers 13 million PlayStation 4s. So there's probably about the same gap as there has always been. Realistically,
there are effectively there are millions of current gen, as we're now having to call it, consoles out there. So you're never going to be short of. No, it's not the current gen. But there are always going to be people that you're going to be able to play your online games with, and quite frankly, to a player, what else matters really?
As long as it's cheap and playable.
Yeah, we've talked about the whole kind of the sort of pointlessness of a console war, I guess, in this sort of day and age. But Microsoft's in their marketing still, and their press releases still do seem to kind of act like there is one.
Microsoft's been quite aggressive this time around, I think.
Yeah.
More so than anyone else.
Well, because they've
they've
lost in the past.
And the words console war, I think they're sort of playground. It's a playground expression.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the last time I talked about it, I think.
Yeah.
It was when I was in a playground. But yeah, every day on my walk to work, there is a big banner ad, like a big poster, billboard. Sorry, can't have no words. And it's for the new Microsoft Surface Pro. And it just says sort of better than a laptop, and then the next phrase is lighter than air. So it's like, directly, it's like screw you, Apple. This is lighter than your thing. Yeah. It's like they should just put, Microsoft Surface Pro. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than the other one.
Their advertising does seem to be very sort of directed at its main competitor.
Yes, yeah, very much so. It's often to their detriment, I think, and I think we should just ignore them until they go away.
They'll never go away while I'm recording this whole thing on my Windows, my computer with Windows and all the Microsoft utilities that I use to make things work.
Yes, and they work. They work fine.
So yeah, I think that seems as good a place as any to leave it. Probably next week we'll talk a bit more about the where development money goes.
In my pocket.
In this swathe of Kickstarter funded projects, there are a few there are a few specific names that I won't mention this week that let's just say have exploited the generosity of the Kickstarter community. But we'll discuss more next week. As ever, if you've enjoyed the podcast, then feel free to drop us a comment, give us a subscribe, a follow on Twitter. All the links are dotted around this video somewhere. You'll stumble over them, I'm sure.
Links are here.
But yeah, thanks for listening. I've been Chris.
I've been Ben.
I've been Jake.
I've been the Mance.
Catch you next time.
See you all.
When hopefully Mance won't spend the whole time playing on GTA 5.
Yay! Tasty.
Ex-French presidential candidate slams Assassin's Creed Unity.
Oh, does he? Oh, it's
Yes.
to do with the French, the Marie Antoinette thing.
Yeah.
I'm not eating you keep eating the chocolates. That's why they keep disappearing.
Haven't they kind of taken the French Revolution and basically said, yeah, it was the assassins?
You will. I'll be up
It was the assassin.
Yeah. It's like, we will revolt.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find that later.
Positive. Basically, they characterized Louis
floor.
Louis the 16th as positive, and Marie Antoinette. And this guy described them as treacherous and that cretin, Marie Antoinette. This is ex-French presidential candidate Mélenchon, or Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
I was about to say, is that his name? Is he like Prince? Is he just one word?
Just Mélenchon. That's why he's an ex-French presidential candidate, because he was too stupid even for the French to elect as president.
No.
You gotta love the French.
Yes. Oh,
They're great. They're like a crazy people, aren't they? They're just floating in and out of their own world and then into the real world.
I mean, I'm certain these kind of snippets are taken out of context in this IGN article I'm just reading, but it does sound like he was just angry at it and not
articulate the world in this game.
Yeah. It presents an image of hatred of the revolution, hatred of the people, hatred of the republic, which is rampant in the far-right milieu of today.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a great rant when you get the word milieu in, I think.
So that he's going for it. He's not wasting any time.
No, exactly. And on a side note, this picture of of the sort of wrist crossbow thing looks fucking ridiculous. I would just like to add, as a weapon. As a wrist crossbow.
I never got around to playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
I've heard it's the good one.
So I'm a bit out of tune with the storyline, which has kind of put me off any kind of desire to play Unity at this point.
Oh, I don't think the storyline, as in the non-assassinating bits of the storyline, were ever particularly good.
No.
but everything I've read
about... No, you ask a fan.
What are there people out there that really liked Desmond?
Yeah, there's people who like the whole Abstergo storyline.
Oh God.
Are these people like invested in the crazy theories behind the Illuminati and stuff as well, or?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Yeah. At the end of Assassin's Creed 2, you have a punch-up with the Pope.
Yeah.
This
is.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That's when I decided to stop playing at that point. I was like,
It's not just the Pope though. It's the Super Pope.
The Super Pope with his superpowers, and he uses
the
magical
power of Eden.
stuff. I was like, after beating up the Pope, I think I'm done with this as a game series. Really, I think
you beat up the Pope, and then you have to go and get introduced to some godlike alien being.
Yeah.
It just goes from extreme to extreme.
Well, I mean,
I think
that's all to do with the spider that lives under the Vatican.
Of course. So the South Park, right?